One team in the AFC West set themselves up for a potential Super Bowl run in 2025. Stay tuned to find out which team that is. Let's grade the AFC West. Ryan, starting with the Kansas City Chiefs, they had a fantastic draft class. What grade would you give them?
It's one of the few A's in this year's class for me, Joseph. When I say the word value, that's pretty much how Kansas City went throughout the entirety of this draft. Getting Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle at Ohio State, with the 32nd overall pick after trading back one spot to get some extra capital from the Philadelphia Eagles, to going to get Omar Norman Lott in the late second round, who fell due to medicals. And then my favorite selection of this draft by far, we've talked about it a ton already on this channel, 4th round, 133rd overall pick. The Kansas City Chiefs are able to land wide receiver from Utah State, Jalen Royals, who I think is a potentially dynamic player in the slot who could also play outside. I really think that he is one of the true biggest values of any team in this year's NFL draft.
Draft classes are relative to a team's needs, obviously. They're relative to a team's positioning. And I think for the Chiefs, that already has a really good roster that just needed to plug some holes, but also could be patient with a number of players. That is exactly what they did here. Jalen Royals, time to develop him and allow for him to become a star on this team. We did a separate video on why we think he will become a star. Josh Simmons doesn't need to start right away. You've drafted multiple tackles. He could end up rising into one of the better offensive tackles in the league. To highlight just like one other pick that I really liked them taking Brashard Smith in the 7th round. I think that he is going to be really underrated receiving weapon. He has been a physical profile that they have not had in some time at running back. So you get just another added weapon into the mix. Let's move to the Denver Broncos, who were a playoff team this year, trying to set up Bo Nix for massive success in 2025. What would you grade the Denver Broncos?
I gave him a B because I really love the start of this draft. Like Jahdae Barron at pick 20 from Texas, the corner who's probably going to play a lot in the nickel. I think that is a tremendous selection, and getting like a Quay Robinson there in the early fourth round, I think is another solid add to this potential team. But there were just some misses for me. I'm okay with the RJ Harvey pick, but it was really those 2 third-round selections that really kind of just tampered down my expectations for this draft. Getting Pat Bryant, the wide receiver in Illinois, I thought that was just way too early for Pat Bryant. There were better wide receivers on the board. And then Savion Jones, the edge out of LSU. Look, rotational player, big body, pretty physical, should not be a top 100 pick. So those couple third-round picks, I think, really dampened down the expectations for me for the Denver Broncos.
This is a B class for me. I find the Pat Bryant pick I didn't like, and I agree with you. He didn't run a good 40, but he tested really well in his jumps. I think that we always come into these draft classes thinking that Sean Payton's going to draft some sort of a speedster, and then we were quickly reminded that he loves bigger-bodied, kind of springy guys.
Marcus Colston's, yeah.
We always talk ourselves into this. He's trying to create a basketball team out there, and he quite literally did that with Caleb Lahner, who nobody had on their radar, was a tight end at Utah, has very limited production, but has a number of touchdowns where they just brought him in the red zone. I'm sure that they're going to try and do that. This is his Jimmy Graham reclamation project. The one pick, though, that I'm the most excited about is RJ Harvey. I think that RJ Harvey, outside of Jahdae Barron, who's going to play so well in the slot or on the outside for them in an already elite secondary, they could have the best secondary this season. But RJ Harvey, I think, ends up being this do-it-all back that Sean Payton has been seeking out, who's going to run hard, who can win in space, who can juke guys out when he's given a little bit of room, but also grind you out between the tackles. If RJ Harvey ends up having a top 3 rookie running back season this year amongst the group, amongst Omarion Hampton and Ashton Genty, I would not be surprised. Let's move on over to the Los Angeles Chargers, who took a rookie running back in the 1st round. How would you grade the LA Chargers?
It's another B class for me. I think there was a lot of redeemable qualities. Getting a Kyle Kennard a little bit further down the board, the edge out of South Carolina into day 3, I think was tremendous value. I'm good with the value of 55, taking Trey Harris, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss. But overall, Joe, we talked about this on the live stream this week as well at A to Z Sports Film Room. I just thought there was too much redundancy in this draft. And it started obviously at the top with Omarion Hampton. It's not that I don't think that Omarion Hampton is going to be a really good running back out of North Carolina, and it's not even that I don't think that he is an okay value at pick number 22. It's that why is running back the priority and not wide receiver or tight end or some semblance of a pass catcher for Justin Herbert when you just signed Najee Harris in free agency. I think that you could have done running back a little bit later in this draft. I think there's still a need at wide receiver outside of Ladd McConkey. I think there's still a massive hole at tight end. You can talk me into Oronde Gadsden being a huge value in the 5th round, but I don't think Oronde Gadsden is necessarily going to come in day one and be a starting difference maker at tight end. So I think you just kind of missed the mark a little bit, not prioritizing wide receiver pass catcher earlier. And I just think the running back pick, while not a horrible one, was one that left me just kind of saying, why?
I disagree. This is a B+ draft for me. I think that this is playing exactly to the identity of what Jim Harbaugh wants to do. I've loved the Omarion Hampton pick. I know that there is a little bit of redundancy with Harris, but at the same with Najee Harris. But I think that having a hard-nosed runner like this that you can just lean on, knowing that Harbaugh likes to establish the run. I've come around on the Trey Harris pick. I think that he's a decent receiver. He's not some sleeper that's going to go on to be a Pro Bowler, but I think that he could be productive within this offense as another target. And Keandre Lambert-Smith was also a sneaky good pickup. The one later one that I really liked was Oronde Gadsden, who I'm higher on than you, I believe. I had a higher grade on him. He could be a dynamic weapon for you in the slot. And we know that having a tight end to turn to that is explosive is something that Jim Harbaugh has had in every single stop throughout his coaching career. Let's round things out with the Las Vegas Raiders, who took Ashton Jeanty in the 1st round. What would you grade the Raiders draft?
I really like this draft a lot. I'm going B+ on this one, sir. Ashton Jeanty at the top. I think you got one of the top 5 overall players in this class. Dynamic running back to add to a room that desperately needed it. But going down, Joe, Charles Grant, number 99 overall, developmental offensive lineman out of William & Mary, who probably would have went a little bit earlier if he was not injured. Even into day 3, I think there was a lot of value, like a Tonka Hemingway out of South Carolina, who was a part of that really deep, talented defensive line for South Carolina. So I think they found tremendous value in this class. I think they found their staple and their identity on offense early on with Ashton Jeanty. I really like a lot of what the Raiders did in this one.
This is a B class for me, but I will, because I like the Ashton Jeanty pick, but my only issue, I still stand by this. I don't like taking running backs on teams that are not in the playoff mix. They are a year away from being in the playoff mix. You can't suddenly convince me that after we just hyped up some of these teams in the AFC West that they're suddenly going to shock teams. But my whole point here, why I still like this class, is that there's a lot of creativity. Charles Grant has been one of my favorite prospects throughout this cycle. He has the potential to be one of your best starting linemen in a couple of years. And then the creativity comes from them taking Darian Porter, which is exactly the type of corner that Pete Carroll has always turned to. Taking J.J. Pegues, who is probably going to play actually just defensive tackle, but he was a Wildcat quarterback
fullback baby
this year. Fullback. Yeah. And then on top of this, Tommy Mellott, who was a dynamic FCS quarterback converting to wide receiver, ran a really fast 40 time at his pro day running the 4.3s. He could turn into a gadget player. And rounding things out with Cam Miller, who was a winner at the FCS level, winning a national championship this past season, and could just be a really high floor quality backup for your team if he ends up making this roster. Comment below, folks. What do you think of our grades? Any picks that we missed that you want us to bring up? Hit that like button and subscribe. We'll talk to you later.